estimate is that for every $1 that you generate electricity, you get 6 to 7 more dollars through the economy-wide benefit. So what it means is that there is this cascade effect of, you do electricity, then your industrial parks start to work, then you create another work, that one create this, that, so it multiplies. So typically the benefit of the GERD is not just really putting a dollar amount of the electric generation, but what we call the cascading effect of economy-wide implications. We have more than 30,000 megawatt potential in Ethiopia in terms of hydropower. GERD accounts about 5 megawatts, 5,000. So this is one of the major projects, not just only for Ethiopia, but for the entire region. In fact, it will be the largest hydropower in Africa as well. So the GERD is not just only from electric production, but there is so many associated benefits. It gets into all kinds of areas, from economy, health, food security. So the contribution GERD is quite a bit in many areas. So that's why Ethiopia is trying to be, for example, self-sufficient in food. Food security is a huge one. So in addition to the electric power production, that's what we can expect in the future as well. From my few days communication with different ministries, people working in GERD and other areas, it's my understanding that we will be able to start generating electricity within about a month, somewhere a few weeks to a month, and that's significant. So the 2 turbines, number 9 and 10, are in great shape. Basically, they are ready to go. We expect soon electric generation, and it will be connected to the national grid. The grid already, the work is completed. So we are in a great place. So once we start the generating electricity, then we will be able to control the water that's going, the downstream under the structure. If you see now, flow is over the what we call the central block. So they cannot work right now because water is flowing on it. So once we start generating electricity, they will be able to dry quickly this central block, and then they will start to raise that as well. So the generation of electricity, a huge milestone. It may also calm all this noise that we hear from the downstream countries. So we are in great shape as far as I can see. The next step is generation, as I said, and then they have to raise the central block to 595, and then the third filling will come next year. So it will really allow them to expedite the work of the construction, because, like I said, they will control flows through the turbine. After that, the expectation is within the next 2-3 years, we should be able to completely have it. But between now and then, we will be producing some level of electricity, and that will get into the national grid. It will start to help all these industrial parks and other areas. And in fact, one of the things I was surprised coming here, people even here in the capital, how many times the electricity goes out and come back. I could not believe this. So it's my expectation, and I think we are on the right track to at least address those issues of interruption as well. But in a few years, we will have full force production, and that will be even much more significant. Yeah, the next Egypt and Sudan. Sudan used to be very in sync with Ethiopia because there is so many benefits for Sudan. But Egypt's concern is that not just for GERD, but their concern is that later on, how Ethiopia may use for consumptive water use. So this would be for irrigation, water supply that actually consumes water. Obviously, Ethiopia also has a share, and we should consume some of the water as well. So Egypt issue is that the reduction later on, not the GERD. Filling the GERD is not going to impact them at all, because their dam, the High Aswan Dam, is full. In fact, the highest it has been in 30 years. So their concern is what happened after GERD, and they want to use GERD right now to make agreements. Their preference is a binding agreement, and then try to stop Ethiopia from using anything upstream of GERD. So that's the main issue. In terms of filling by itself, that should not be a big issue for both of them. Sudan gets a lot of benefits, but even Egypt as well. They bring the drought time release from Ethiopia. So that drought time release from Ethiopia is basically, it says that Ethiopia will give priority to fill the High Aswan Dam before GERD is filled. So the issue with that is that we don't know our share. Ethiopia doesn't have any share. If Ethiopia had its own share, it will simply use its own share to fill the dam. So the concern is what if there is a multi-year drought? Right now we are not in a drought. We don't expect the next year, probably not even after that, but at some point drought will come. So when that drought comes, what is the priority of filling the dam? Egypt wants to fill her dam first, and then Ethiopia will come up. Ethiopia says, well, I have also share, I have to fill. So since there is no agreement on share, we don't have any solution. So that's the sticky point. So they know, we know that drought come at some point in the future, but now we are not on that on a drought. Typically, if you see the Nile flow, we call like a regime type of flow. You have like 10 years of more than average and wet condition, and then you have another subsequent years of drought. So drought will come at some point. But if we have share, if we cooperate, then it should be easier. But I think that's one of their concern. But the way they are addressing is not correct, because they are trying to say Ethiopia has to release everything forever. I mean, there's no any example I can cite in the world that what Egypt is asking Ethiopia to do. I think Sudan last time, and then also Egypt, they wanted to bring other actors. I personally don't agree, because the reason is that you bring all these other external players. At the end of the day, it is between Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan. So if they will be the only countries that can solve this for good. But you bringing other mediators actually complicates things. I had a webinar several months back, and I invited many experts, including Sudanese professors and so on. And this was what I got from one of their very famous lawyer. In fact, I asked him this, why is that? There is internationally basically agreement, and a way you bring more people into the table, you complicate even the problem. And then everybody has their own interest also. So for me, it's Ethiopia who has to take care of its own interest. So the African Union is capable. They should be able to solve the problem under that umbrella through we heard African problems with African solutions for African problem, which is correct. So there is no need really to bring other third party like, they are suggesting, the World Bank, US and EU. And we know what happened last time, in 2019. That's how I actually started getting involved to GERD after I saw the proposal written by World Bank and US. And basically that if we were going to agree with that, we wouldn't even be able to fill the dam. We wouldn't. because it's incredible what type of numbers they were proposing. So I don't see there is a need to involve other third parties onto this negotiation. I think Sudan last time, and there is a study in Nature journal, for example, by Egyptian and Sudanese professors. They look at climate change. So when climate change, what would happen in the future? One of the things we see, and I look at some of the climate forecast as well for the Nile Basin countries, in all the cases, it says the temperature will rise. And you can see how Addis Ababa is changing actually this month. People were complaining how it is, but you can expect in the future, almost all models, they say temperature will increase. Rainfall will be, variable. One year it will be flood, the other year it will be drought. What do you need? You need to store water. Where? In the highland of Ethiopia. So in fact, to counterbalance climate change, we do need to build more dams, not just GERD, more dams in the cooler, higher region of Ethiopia. Because the temperature rise means more water will evaporate. Right now, the High Aswan Dam is full, like I said, 30 years. So our estimate is about 16 to 17 billion cubic meter right now just evaporates. So you can imagine 20 years, 30 years from now, when temperature rises, there is even more water is going to be lost through evaporation. So you can see it one way or another, the benefit of the GERD. And in fact, we should even add more, like I said, but the benefit of GERD is not just for Ethiopia, for all the downstream countries, including Egypt. And the third, also, we don't expect any issue in terms of for downstream countries. So Sudan already, whatever goes through the turbine and now overtopping is enough. Just to give you a perspective, the dam downstream of GERD, Sudan, can only hold 7 billion cubic meters. 7. On average, flow in August in Ethiopia is 15. More than that, it comes in a month. So Ethiopia definitely, Sudan doesn't have even that capacity to hold. So it's not going to impact them. Egypt, their reservoir is full. There should not be any impact. And then the third one is we started to look some of the climate prediction for next year. The climate prediction typically are based on how the ocean warms and cools and so on. So the ocean doesn't cool and then suddenly become warm like this. No, it takes years. So because of that, today, the recent forecast I saw from International Research Institutes, that's from Columbia University, they forecast 6 months, a year out. There is we expect a more than average rainfall, and the flow should be good this year as well. Last year we were saying that there is no problem, and probably, and I said this by the way, that Sudan should be worried about flooding, not shortage of supply. So based on what we see in terms of the climate, based on what is the situation for High Aswan Dam, we don't see any problem for the third filling as well. The safety of the dam, there is a couple of things. So they mix a couple of things. One safety is the structural safety. If something happened and the dam collapse, this has been argued long time ago. Expert has looked at it. I mean, this is just debunked long time ago. So that should not be a problem. But the other safety is in terms of coordination. As I mentioned, Sudan cannot hold, it's unable to hold too much water because they don't have that much of a space for the dam, which is downstream of the GERD. So for that, they need a communication with Ethiopia. That's for sure. I agree with that. And I think Ethiopia is also willing to give, to exchange this information. And other than that, this safety issue is simply not supported by scientific, studies. So I will leave it at that. Yeah, so the power gets into other economic, the supporting economic direction. So one of the things I think from what I see, the estimate is that for every $1 that you generate electricity, you get 6 to 7 more dollars through the economy-wide benefit. So what it means is that there is this cascade effect of, you do electricity, then your industrial park start to work, then you create another work, that one create this, that, so it multiplies. So typically the benefit of the GERD is not just really putting a dollar amount of the electric generation, but what we call the cascading effect of economy-wide implications, and that number is huge. $6 to $7 for every dollar generated means that's significant. So it gets into many places. You can attach it to healthcare, so many things. You can attach it to school. Right now, people even can't study in the evening. I mean, they have to wait to study, or they have to use very terrible situation, hurting themselves. Healthcare is a huge one. There is so many things that you can attach. In fact, almost, I think all of the sustainable development goals that was put, by UN can be addressed using just GERD. So many areas it can get as well. Yeah, so the sticky point, and if I have to summarize, it goes back to trying to maintain the status quo of Nile water use. Egypt doesn't want anybody else to use, especially consumptive water use. I remember one of their negotiators, he said, in their proposal, he said, we put a circuit breaker. So what it means is circuit breaker, when something shocks, basically you are protecting. So what it means is that they want to control all other development and all other activities on the upper Nile basin, rather than trying to figure out, okay, how much water it is, and then how we can do this in a cooperative manner. So why it's taking so long, is simply because of Egypt's unwillingness to share the water of the Nile. Bottom line, they don't want to share. They want to keep 100% of the 1959 agreement, basically, with Sudan. In fact, Sudan doesn't use even the 18.5. In that agreement, it says 84 billion, the total, 84 billion cubic meters. But our estimate is much more than that. So on paper, Egypt seems like, they use 15.5. No, they probably is 70, even 80 billion cubic meters. So when you are using this much of water for so long, you don't want anybody else to come up and mess what you think it belongs to you. I think that's the problem. So Egypt is looking at to maintain the status quo of, I'm going to use this water basically alone. That's it. I mean, maybe it's hidden in all the things they provide, but the underlying thing is that you cannot use this water. That's what they're saying. We are the only one who want to use.
It's kind of selfishness, yeah.
Big time selfishness, because this is not the way. Even for them, I think if you look at from the science perspective, everybody can get a lot better out of it. In fact, what we advocate with my group and research and so on is to look at it from water, food, energy perspective. People-centered planning, they call it. So when you think about a person, what does a person need? It needs the water, it needs energy, it needs food. And how best you can do this within the Nile Basin. So it doesn't mean that, okay, Ethiopia should only generate electricity and then stop. I remember, I think Dr. Seleshi mentioned, I like this expression, that it cannot be on the back of the Ethiopian farmers that they cannot produce anything. So basically, so we do need more than electricity. We do need agricultural expansion. Maybe Sudan has a lot of agriculture, that's fine. But Ethiopia also needs agricultural expansion. So we cannot just say, okay, you produce electricity and that's it. There are so many farmers there. We need for farming as well as for supply. So if we look at it from water, food, energy perspective, then it would have been easier for all the three countries to work. Not just only, others as well. But I think focusing just only my use, the Egypt side is that one. That's very difficult. That's the whole issue. It took more than a decade with no agreement.